All right, Baruch Hashem, we got off to a very good start. Boring it was definitely not, and we'll try to continue that streak. It's always nice to have a parsha that talks about the Eruv, and the previous speakers brought the ladder and Vayitzai, and this week we have Karen Zuvius, so we're good. All right, so maybe everyone should introduce themselves.
My name is Eruv. I'm working in Adom in Lakewood, Tamsiver, in Jackson. Now is going Baruch Hashem. We started 6 years ago, Baruch Hashem, and now we are busy with Adom all around. We have checkers, we have a system over there, Baruch Hashem, and we're trying to take care of problems and to make the oilam should be Kavod Shabbos, the Kavod Shabbos should be Oinik Shabbos with Eruv.
Mordechai Paretzki. What do I do? I built Eruv from literally the northwest corner of the country down to the southeast corner of the country, and many Eruv in between. And I have 3 bucket trucks, and I drive them around the country and go in different cities at different points in time. Is that good? Okay.
My name is Adom Witkin. I'm a builder for the LA Eruv for 8 years.
Yonah Ribiat. I've been with the Baltimore Eruv for a number of years. That's my main Eruv.
Okay, let's get right into it. Let's see what we have here for questions. That's the first one. Let's see. Yeah, I guess that's it. Okay. When a lechi is on the back side of a utility pole, as you see, you can see the pole, but you don't see the lechi. So it's on the hidden side of it, I guess, if you're driving down the street. What are your thoughts on that? I guess we'll start, we'll go in the row here.
Usually, interesting thing, but I'm not checking Eruv. I'm just fixing it, and I have Baruch Hashem Mashgiach checking it. I think it's over from a guy who's used to check Eruv and fix and build Eruv. But Baruch Hashem, I see is better if we divide between the checking and the building. It's 2 separate things. We have a checker with why we do it like that, because the builder know a lot of Baruch Hashem of Hilchos Eruv, and also know the loops of them also. And know when it's coming to a problem, is no, okay, we can do it for next week. Maybe we should do it. It's good for this week. But if you got a message from a checker, this and this address need to get fixed, so you need to do it right away because you need to send them a message back. It need to be fixed. But if you're checking with yourself, you can be soimech sometimes of certain halachas, what is stack halachas like that. But it can be better if you have a separate mashgiach and separate the builder and the fixer.
Okay, so I do check Eruv, but for the most part, I'm building Eruv. So when I'm building Eruv, my obviously halacha is the number 1 goal, but also making it checkable and visible to be checked as easily as possible. So therefore, then there'll be less issues. So for example, I use what's called 2-inch U-guard for the most part, and then I'll try to cheshbon. Okay, well, the checker, he's going to be going down north, let's say we're looking north. So then, okay, he's going to be driving northbound. So therefore, then I'll try to put the lechi on the side that we're looking at, on the back of the pole, and as straight as possible. But therefore, then it'll be visible. This picture will be extremely visible. So therefore, then even though it's on the back side of the pole, then the lechi it'll be easy to be checked. Additionally, and then on the bottom of the lechi is I'll put in more bolts and things to make it stronger in case with the lawn mowers and things like that. And if it's on the front side of the pole, and if it's somewhere where there's snow, so then I'll put more bolts also in the front. So therefore, then the snow plows, even if they hit it, it won't break it. So I try to cheshbon those different types of factors. Therefore, then to try to have foresight, think ahead, plan ahead, Rosenger of what the issues will be, and therefore then to mitigate those issues, yitchila.
Yes, slightly different perspective. So in LA, we have pretty much all our lines are lines we run ourselves rather than using the utility line. So when I would look at something like this, right, as was said, the main problem is just that with the cables being on the back of the pole, you're gonna have to put the lechi on the back. But what we would try to do for something like this would be if you could put, let's say, a conduit or a PVC onto the front side or somewhere where it's more visible to make it more checkable, and then you could run your own string from that to whichever direction you're trying to go, or both directions from there.
I'm lucky to be at the end of the line. We would use a very large lechi in the back. We've been using conduit, so to put a large piece of conduit so you could see it when you're probably 2.5. It's about 2.5, but 2.5 you can usually see. We've been using PVC conduit. Yeah, electrical conduit. The other eitzah that we've used many times is very often if you have something on the back, so obviously it affects the pole in front of it and back of it. So let's call pole A, B, and C. Call the middle pole with the problem B. So then we run 2 lechis from on the outer poles, and then the middle pole gets only 1 lechi. We run our own string.
Thank you. Okay, using a cable which is on a long arm. So if you look here in the picture, you see there's a long arm coming out from the pole, and that's where the cable is. So how do you work with that? I'll give it to you first.
I should have kept my mouth shut. In this case, again, if sometimes you're better off just moving the lechi to the back of the pole, and then we would do the same thing as we just did. If you cannot do that, and there are scenarios when you can't, best eitzah that I have found is to run a string lechi. Run a string lechi, it'll be on an angle, which most poles are on, utility poles, like Rabbi Bechafer said, are on an angle anyway. Most lechis are not, straight up and down 90, straight up and down. So you run a string lechi from that out, whichever line you're on, down to the bottom of the pole.
Sorry, I'll come back to you in a second. But mentioning the string lechi, oops, let me see. I want to come to something which I think will show what you're talking about. Let me see where it is. Uh-oh. 1 second. Don't mind me, I'm just having fun clicking this clicker. It's like exciting. Okay, I think it's just coming up. Here it is, this picture, right? When you're saying the string lechi, this is what you mean. So you have this string coming from here. You want to explain it? Maybe we can tackle this one now, and then we'll come back.
That's actually my picture. We've always said that, that when you always have a number of wires going on a pole, very often it looks like a bowl of spaghetti. So really, we should have gluten-free Eruv. But that's not the way it is. They look like spaghetti. So in this particular case, our only eitzah was a very busy pole. We were not comfortable with any of the wires because they veer off. So what we did is we ran a string lechi, as you can see it on the left-hand side, from the ground, and then we ran that string straight into their wire about 5 or 6 feet down, and we connected our string into their wires. So after the wire bent, after we got it into the straight part of their wire. And that way we were able to alleviate the situation of that wire that was really not straight enough to use. However, what we meant when we said string lechi is that the lechi actually is connected to the wire itself. That is a string lechi, but we use a string, but you connect it to the utility wire itself. In that particular picture? Yeah, and that particular picture is not the scenario that we were talking about before. The scenario we were talking about before is that the wire was out on a bracket. So what we do is we take I know a lot of people don't like I know Micha doesn't like zip ties, but we have found zip ties to be very, very helpful. They don't last forever, but they do last a long time. And basically, we zip tie around the wire that's on the bracket, and then we take a string and we put it right inside the zip tie and we tighten it up. And then when you pull on it, gravity pulls the string to be exactly underneath the wire. And it's like a plumb line, yeah. And then you take that plumb line down to the bottom, and then you have your lechi. No, sometimes yes, sometimes not. If it's a high traffic area, then it gets attached to a lechi because strings are vulnerable. But the lechi, it's like something made out of plastic, is not so vulnerable. Yeah, that's exactly the same idea. That's exactly the same. Sometimes linemen do not like it. What's that? Yeah, they don't like it, but you do what you need to do. Yes, you can do that too. We can use PVC to do the same exact thing.
So we're back to that original question. You remember this question?
Yeah. I mean, because it's right. The issue here is it's not against the utility pole. So if you tried to run something straight up, it wouldn't work. One, I guess, potential other thing, which could also depend on what's on the ground below and whether there's going to be pedestrians, is if you had maybe a big barrel or something similar that would be large, where it's going to already be farther out from the utility pole that you could use. But then again, now you're running into the problem of, is it going to be more easily noticed? Could it get removed, but that would also solve the problem of this being too far from that pole.
Okay, so first going back to zip ties, they have metal zip ties now.
Yeah, no,
okay, good. Okay, maybe Micha likes them better now. But instead of metal zip ties, I've used either hose clamps or I forget what's called, the strap that goes around the bundle, the cable wires. I forget what it's called. Yeah, with the fancy clips. I forgot what it's called. Special system. I don't remember. No. Whatever. Like what bundles the cable wires together. So you could use that to then. So in other words, put the lechi going up, and then at the 10 feet below where the wire. In other words, bolt the bottom part of the lechi to the pole, and then start angling up a little bit gradually, and put spacers and different things like that to angle up, and then connect the lechi to the wire with a hose clamp or metal zip ties or other different types of clamps. That's one eitzah. Another eitzah would be to run your own wire and just put a lechi flush on the pole. That'll be another possible solution. Or sometimes I'll do both, and then you have two eitzahs. And then I've done this. I know I did this in a city, and it's been like it had both for, I don't know, maybe. No, not shipping. It's a special system for cable wires. And then you have two systems, and then if someone doesn't like the angle.
Also the same. I will go with a PVC, with the angle, with space is still the existing wire. But basically, I will start with to do my own string. I got an interesting story about thing like that. Mamash exactly. So I got, and of course it's on Friday, so I need to make a lechi. Also, I want to make the strings, but the two places, with the other two poles, is mamash. I need to block the street, and it's only one way, and it's a busy street in Jackson. So I by Rabashkin, yes. So I did. Yeah. So not about these items, but a different wire in Latesville. So I took my lechi. The pole before and pole and after is mamash al gaboy. The wire is mamash on top of the pole. Only this lechi is not on top. So I go with PVC in almost reaching the power line in the top, and it's 30 feet. But Baruch Hashem, it's staying for a few weeks. And then one of the guys, of the lecture guys, came in mamash days who cut me the all lechi, but he took the wire and put it on top of the pole because she not can reach again. But Baruch Hashem, it's back to the line.
Okay, so now question is, what if it was concrete below? So how do you put if you have just like before, same scenario as before, it's sticking out, and you have a concrete right on the bottom. A concrete? No, you have a concrete. This part here is concrete. So how you putting in? How you drilling? How are you making the lechi? Okay, next. Okay, mounting a string on a street light pole. Okay, so how would you handle this?
So I buy from the caps. So it's a special caps for that, and I fixing it whatever. Putting you have a picture of that. So a special thing. What's about a guy from Chicago. So,
I'll try to get you a picture. In LA, the Teichmann down there.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
a picture also. of one.
Like that. Go back. That.
Looks
Yeah.
like this, if anyone wants to see it. Basically, it starts out like this, and then you just bend it into shape. You just bend it into shape over the top of the pole. You could use a hose clamp like you see there, just to attach it, and then you have kind of like an eyelet on the top. You can run the line through there, and then it's able to attach to the top of not every pole, but pretty much, yeah. And then I think Rabbi Gore was saying he has a supplier. I don't know where he is now. A supplier you could talk to Rabbi Gore about where to order them from, but he said he has someone also. Yeah, no, they're not so complicated. I don't know offhand where we had ordered ours from, but they're very, very handy for these types of situations. Yeah, when we built the Eruv in LA 25 years ago, we came up with it, and it's been used in a lot of places because it's very handy.
Right. Another eitzah is two other eitzahs would be to just self tap a pad eye or something like that, or into the top of the pole, something like that. Another option would be to put an L bracket with hose clamp or bandit around the top of the pole, and then an eye on the top, and then and assuming you do it right, it'll stay on the top. That's a very good eitzah sometimes if the is an eye just on the top. But sometimes I've had for whatever reason you can't get anything like that, or I forgot the case. Like it was like there was a top and it was like came on an arm, and therefore then I can't even describe it. But the light fixture was held up. Yeah, the light fixture was held up like with two things coming like this, and then the top there was nothing there. It was just hanging down or something. So there was no real top or something. So then I used like a flat piece of metal to come farther down. It's a foot long or 2 feet long, whatever it is, and then band that to the pole, and then put an L bracket attached to the top of that, and then have that coming on top with an eye on the top of that.
Weird where there's no top where the pole just angles up, meaning it's just one.
So if
tapers up,
right, so you're talking about the light pole doesn't go straight and then out. There's a gradual curve, right? So then in those, right? So then what I've done is I've just added my own lechi to the pole, and then band that to the pole, and then I have my own top over there.
Let's see next what we got here. This is actually the same thing. Okay, what if the cap is too loose? You see, the cap is like almost half off over there. But I guess the same thing as you did, like you just fix that. Yeah, all you use is fix the cap, or you just screw in something. Okay. All right. Mounting an Eruv on an uneven surface.
Just to go back to the last scenarios that we were talking about, if you use any utility pole that has a cap on top of it, they're held on by set screws, and they're not made to be pulled on by Eruv strings. So what we have found is that we drill a hole through the cap and put our own screws at about 3 points on top. And that holds the cap onto the top of the utility pole, because in any kind of scenario, you pull on that cap that's being held on just by set screws. It's not going to hold, especially if there's any other tension on it, like ice or something else.
Just going back to kind of like that one, or one where there's no cap, a different option, something that we'll do less for it's a pole that's already there with no cap, and more if we're installing our own pole, is if you drill a hole in the side of the lechi, let's say a couple inches from the top, and you run the line through the top and out the side, and you loop it, and then you tie it off, it's coming out across the top, which also might not work on something like that. I don't know if the city wants you doing that, but.
Right. So I would just add, I used to do lechis like that. Now I stopped because I've had multiple. So I'm working in cities across the country, and then I used to do that, and then then if the wire comes down for whatever reason, then someone repairs it, then they repair it wrong. So if you're the one who's doing it and you're aware of the cheshbon that, it's got to go over the top, then out the hole, so then that's great. But if it's not you and someone else is doing it, they don't necessarily chop, that has to go over the top and then out, and they do it reverse, so they tie it around because they get up there and like, what in the world, how am I attaching this thing? They don't know what it's doing, how it's supposed to connect. Whoever it is, whether it's a city, electric company, cable company, or even I've had plenty of from people do it wrong, and in my year. So that is an eitzah. I would just buyer beware of something like that.
We've never had an issue with that. No.
Um,
It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but we've not had an issue with that.
Okay, this here is an uneven surface. The wall is uneven. What am I doing here? Okay, I'm getting trigger happy here. Okay, so how would you handle a situation like this?
Also, the same. Oh, the right. Yes, I need. So again, the same thing. We need to have the koire. The right picture is the koire. We see the koire. In the left picture is the lechi. So most of the time I'm doing also metal, or you can do a PVC. Also the same thing. We're making all in the pen and egg, but Baruch Hashem, we got it done the same way. Trying to do 2 holes over there and make sure it's strong. Checking with the laser pointer, a self laser, to make sure it's mamish under the coir, and that's it.
Okay, so a few ideas here you could. So first of all, you need a rotary drill. That's number one. If you just have a hammer drill, then you're living back in the day. You should get a rotary drill. It'll make your life a million times easier. That's number one. Number two, you can do like a 2x6 or something like that and have it come out. So I think part of the shaila here is that the top concrete brick seems to be past the. I don't know if I'm right, but that's what it looks like to me. It's sticking out more than the wall, right? So you maybe a 2x6 or something like that. So then it'll get you past it. Or as Zishe said, you could. I've run a conduit all the way up the top and then put spacers behind it and just get 4-inch screws, 4-inch concrete screws. I think Mo Bamberger is supposed to get me 6-inch concrete screws. I have a case right now. And something like that, and then you can bracket it, and obviously put a bracket at the very top, and then you can, your conduit might bend a little bit, but something like that. Those are two possible eitzos.
One other possible thing, which I can't tell if that's what was done here, is it looks like the problem with even just with the lower part, besides what's going on above, is that with the surface being uneven, it can be hard to find different, like, two equal points to mount the lechi to the wall if the wall is uneven. But if you can get different depths of spacers and put them to kind of even it out a little bit and give yourself a few points to anchor, which looks like what was done here, then that might be a good eitzah.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. In this situation, if you look on the left picture, trying to make a lechi here, but this is a very hard surface. And it's very hard to knock in something into this surface. It's like metal, you can't drill into it. And if you look at the bottom, maybe it's hard to see on this picture, but on the bottom, it goes diagonal and like away from the wall. So the question is how to mount properly onto this. So if you see in the right picture how it's done, very nice job. One second, let me give it to you first again.
Thanks. On the bottom is concrete. I don't see any other eitzah other than what was done on the right-hand side, offhand, from what I'm seeing from the pictures.
The middle picture is just the wire. Just the
This is Unistrut. Now, Unistrut is designed for, like, when you have warehouses, and oftentimes in warehouses they have the pillars that look exactly like this. So one of the features in Unistrut is they have clamps, and the clamps can clamp onto it, and then you cut your Unistrut to be whatever size you want, and that's how you attach these things. So you don't have to drill into it. This thing actually clamps on. I might have some, I don't think I have it out in my truck right now. I usually buy them special. Anytime I have to do anything with Unistrut, I usually have to design it beforehand and go buy the pieces because I don't use it that often. It should last past Mashiach's coming, but not much longer than that.
So that should be about a week.
I just want to add, no, I think this is great. I'll hopefully tonight, Mr. Shem, I'll have a picture, but I don't know if these wires, I've had cases of wires like this, that I'm assuming that in this Surah Bezach, it's in the middle of that long span for the high tension wires, as I'm assuming. So those high tension wires, I had a case of a cable wire and I had a case this year of a high tension wire of something similar to that it actually blows in the wind. So you just have to be careful that, I think that your yellow thing is about a foot, I think.
So the reason why it's 2 feet wide is because I'm going to put 2 of those there, but I only had one that day.
There we go.
So I put one, but
Right.
I'm going to come back and I came back and
And put another one. Right. So so what my so he,
working for Rabbi Steinmetz, he wants 3 feet.
right. So what we're hinting at, what? It's going to blow even more, right? So the fiber optic cables, which are thin cables, they blow a lot. I had a case this year of a high tension wire like this that I was measuring. I was trying to figure out, it was a whole line. I was trying to figure out where I could put lechis. And then, as it happened to be, hashkacha, again, the same thing happened last year, that it was a windy day and the wires were bouncing back and forth. Believe it or not. Well, I mean, it's all the way up there. I don't know how many feet. It was feet. I mean, it's a big span. You're dealing hundreds of feet of span. So, I don't know, some mathematician could probably do the math. But I've had a case where I had a lechi was 4 feet wide and the wire was feet out of beyond the lechi. So, just a word of caution on, especially when they're in mid-span, on these types of situations.
Very light, and I saw it from pick one up. It's like the fiber in your, it's like the fiber that's in your attic. Very light and very thick, and it catches the wind and goes everywhere.
Okay, in this scenario, what we have is, you see a bunch of trees here. On the right, you see a green, like these green things on the bottom. So where the tree ends on the right, there's a lechi over there. And we're trying to get from the right of this tree all the way to the left of where you can see the green things ending. Just about here is like an overpass or a bridge. And the trees were being used, but then they started thinning out. So it's very tricky how you're going to get how you're going to take a string, where you're going to put the lechis, and how you're going to get it from one place to the other. Where's my little clicker? You have it. Okay, so use it. So go to the next scene so we can see how it was done. Oh, technology. I have white here already. So how to use the pointer?
The red button.
This one. Okay, wow. Okay. All right, what we got here? Okay. So here, let me see if I remember this. We took you know what? Come explain what this is, because this is complicated.
Here, I'll take this. Okay, so here is the lechi, and they used to be using the trees, and this is a bridge, and I was tasked to connect from here to here because they realized that the trees thinned out, and they don't want to be using the trees anymore, and I had to figure this out before Shabbos. That's how pressurized it was. It was very complicated. So I put the slide on asking, like, what would you guys do? What would you think about? I considered doing something higher and going over trees, and I had lots of different designs, but you'll see soon what I came up with. But I'm curious to hear what you guys would say.
I will go with if it's for Shabbos, so I would try to. I had a one problem like that. So for Shabbos, I took just a 10 tefachim pole and put a cap on that and go behind the trees till the bridge. That will do.
I didn't say before. There's a huge tree right there with tons of trees in the way that's blocking in between the bridge and, so that was another factor. Zishe, I can tell you that you and I were thinking alike. You'll see soon.
I would say, first of all, I would never build an Eruv using trees. That's the start. I've used it as a sniff in Florida where they're extremely thick, but even then, I never used trees, just for the simple reason that people get confused and no one chops when the trees thin out, or they mow the bushes down or whatever the case is, and then the Eruv has a problem and people don't realize. Again, I'm trying to make the Eruv as dummy proof as possible. That's why going back to the hole through the thing. Same idea. But yeah, either put Suras Besach in back. Maybe sometimes you would do something for Shabbos or something, maybe something in front even, just as Suras Besach in the back or Suras Besach in the front, and using the trees. I'm not sure I have anything to add what Zishe said, but
not much to add besides that. Maybe you could try to do something with chicken wire short term and then come revisit it when it's not an emergency, right before Shabbos.
This looks like a very well-groomed area where the landscaping is done nicely. I'm not sure what it is behind the trees, if that's also well-groomed. If it would be right before Shabbos, probably you could take some garden stakes that are like Rabbi Zishe was saying, take some garden stakes and make 10 tefachim Eruv straight down to the bridge. But again, it's a well-groomed area, and it probably would be taken down.
In this last, previous slide, there's one subtle halacha that applies, and that is once one builds a Suras Pesach, someone has to be able to walk through it. You can't build a Suras Pesach, for example, in front of a wall. because you can't walk through the wall. So that would imply you have to locate the car rail in such a way that walking through is not possible.
Where's the Rishus? The Rishus on the landscape?
Okay, so this is what was actually done. So he put in another pole on the other side of the trees, and as you see the gate, he put the gate to connect from one to the other. And then he went on the right side, you see he put it, that was on the tree that you put it on the tree, and painted, yeah, that we see. In order to get from that, and you can walk through that actually, so it wouldn't have your issues that you just brought up. Let's see what's next here. Okay, this is by the tree over there. This is connecting the tree to the bridge. On a very low, it's very low, so you can actually work with it. So if you have branches, you can cut it and take care of it. Okay, this scenario, what we have here is you have the fence, as you can see, is bent out of shape, bent out of place. And here's what you just mentioned. This is where we might need something like that, where you have to be able to walk through it. So how do you handle something like this? The inside is the one on the right. It's bending out.
It's pretty easy to get bent out of shape working on an Erev Shabbos. I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at. Yeah, this is one of the things, look, you have to be there. I'm not sure what I'm looking at.
No, you have here a fence, which is your mechitza. And the fence, as you can see, has fallen in. It's bent in and fallen in. So now it's Friday afternoon, Shabbos is at 4:15, and it's 3 o'clock. What are you doing?
I'm not 100%. Right, so I'm gonna assume that I'm assuming that there's a 10 amma pirza of less than 10 tfachim of fence. I guess it's less than it says 10 more than 10 amos of less than of fence that's less than 10 tfachim. So either you can fix the fence, or you could cut away some of the fence and put it Tzuras Pesach, and therefore then you avoid the problem of being able to walk through it.
Let's say 50,
Right, I'm not
50,
exactly sure.
No, it's not 50, like 20 feet. You're at 20 feet. You have 1 hour to.
Okay, so then just put something else there to get another, to reduce the I don't know, string or something to reduce the pirza. So therefore then you have less than 10 amma pirza. And therefore then you have an Omer Meruba. At least it looks like there's Omer Meruba from here, but I'm not 100% sure. But
what I would do is I would just take string on top of the fence. Let's say the fence is down, it's minus, let's say it's 8 tefachim high. So you're missing 2 tefachim. I would just take a string and start stringing the top of the fence. I got a couple of just to make the fence, depends where the pole is, but just that we're talking about just you have 1 hour to work with. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Oh, this is still this. Okay, all right. Let me see here.
okay, so this is probably the hardest tunnel I've ever dealt with in my life. This tunnel this is in the Eruv. And there's no Omen Meruba. Typically, I've been assuming that if it's Dalet Tvachim wide, 10 Tvachim tall, then it'll be a pirza. Then it goes, we don't know where the tunnel goes. We assume it opens up somewhere in some stream way out of the Eruv. Way more than 10 amos, and there's no Omen Meruba anyway. There's no Omen Meruba on the sides. On the right side, it's just water. The wall that you see on the right side is actually farther back. It's an optical illusion. Behind the tunnel. There's the tunnels here. Oh, maybe play the video and then I don't have to explain it. So as you can see, the wall is farther in. So where I'm hanging over, or there's someone rappelling down the wall, and I'm in the green jacket, passing him things, and trying to guide him. So the other problem was that the wall was crumbling as we drilled in. So to make matters worse, we didn't have anywhere to anchor anything to. So Baruch Hashem, there was a guy in the city who is a big repeller. So what we did is that he actually went rappelling down the wall, and then on the side, I don't know if you could see it, on the side, that wall was actually stable. The problem was the face of the wall of the tunnel where's the face? No. The face on, that's where, to the right of where the water is coming out, that was what was all crumbly. On the side of it, that was stable. So therefore, then right, that would just crumble whenever we touched it. So we had to put our own wood. We put a supporting pole on the side, but the problem was that the lechi then it wouldn't work because we couldn't drill into that. So we had to put something behind on the part that was actually stable, and then we put another lechi attached to that, onto that, and then with L brackets, the guy rappelling was able to drill into not the side that we see, behind that, to drill it anchor the supporting post into the wall, and then we anchored the lechi to the supporting post, and then instead of using string, I used rigid conduits as the kana elyon, as you might be able to tell. It's metal pipes. It's two 10-footer metal pipes that are just screwed together with a coupling. As the kana elyon, as you can see, we didn't really want this to come down and have to go through this again. And just on the kana elyon's just sitting on top of the lechi with some brackets, 2-hole straps or something. And then the other side, it's the same thing with, I don't know if there's a picture of that, but then that's attached to, anchored to something, and then the kana elyon sitting on top of those lechis. Even less than 10 amos, right? Because there's no meruba. Because there was no meruba. The Metzias, there's water behind it. There's no Omen Ruba. The tunnel juts out, and then behind it, there was nothing. Because we had to anchor the, right. And I needed the problem was it's going in the water. The water wasn't ground, the karka wasn't what you see. It goes in the water another, I don't know, a few feet or whatever it is.
No. Oh, that was you. Okay. Let me see if we have another one on this. 1 second. No, let's go back to this. Okay.
What, tunnels? Most cities that I have built have a tunnel. Not one, like 10. Like 20. What? Maybe 30. Oh, how many tunnels per city? Yes. Oh, sometimes one, sometimes I've had cities with... No, they don't even know about the one. But even sometimes I've had cities with 5 tunnels. Like, you know. How many do you know? What? How many don't we know? Basically, how is it possible to not know? Yeah. Oh, no, so I spend plenty of time on satellite view, and I know where to look on where I'm looking for tunnels, and then when I'm building there, if I go around and then I'm looking, I know what clues I'm looking for to figure out where there might be a tunnel.
Okay, here in this picture here, like if you look at the right picture, you might be able to see the issue. If you look on the bottom, if you want to reach the floor where you're putting the lechi, is very far from the actual tunnel entrance. So in this case, you can see there's 2 lechis put one to the other so that it's going to be connected to the tunnel. Zishe. What? Sorry, okay.
The tunnel, so a lot of folks think, so correct me if I'm wrong, I think that if, in other words, if you, just like if you have a, let's say here's the Eruv border, and then if you have a bridge, let's say here's a fence, a highway fence or something, and then you have a bridge that, starts in the Eruv and then goes over the fence and goes, an overpass or something. Right, exactly. That's from in the Eruv to out of the Eruv, or out of the Eruv into the Eruv, and you don't have a tzuras of Pesach, and you don't have a Meruba, or if it's more than Tanamos, or if there's B'chias Rabin, whatever, there's all sorts of various permutations of the Shaila, but then it would be a problem. So the opposite is also, just like if you have a problem, if you have a bridge going over is a problem, so too a tunnel going under the fence is also a problem. So if you have a fence and then this tunnel for water or for bike paths, happens a lot, things like that. Golf courses, I've had this. So those types of scenarios, you would have this.
All right, here we have just some random questions. So let's see, what do you think is the biggest mistake Eruvin make? People who make Eruvin. Or we'll pick any of these. Any tips for attaching a Tziras HaPesach to a telemislaket? You had one. You just had a telemislaket over there by the 70, no? Okay. When you're worried that others will remove a regular lechi, what are tricks you could use to make a lechi blend in?
So in terms of blending in, that's why, so as I mentioned before, I use 2-inch U-guard, which is the same, also known as riser covers, which is the exact same thing the utility companies use to, if they're the electric company, when they're bringing an electric wire down from on top of the pole, to bring it down because someone's getting underground service, they're going to bring the wires instead of overhead to a building, then they bring it down the pole and then they bury it under the ground and bring it to the building. So they cover the wire on top of the pole with the U-guard. So there's a few big advantages of that. One advantage is that it blends in because it's the material is the exact same material that the electric company uses. So then they don't realize. And the way I personally, what I do is I have a whole system and a whole siman on how I do my bolts. So I know which one, and then I explain to the communities, and show them the simons. Therefore, then they know which ones are lachis and which ones are not our lachis, because it's the same material. So even the Eruv people could get confused. So to try to reduce that confusion, I have a simon. I have had plenty of cases where the electric company or cable company actually uses my U-guard and puts their wires in my thing. And they don't pay me for it, but okay. But anyway, so then they, so I have that, but then I have a simon, but that's an eitzah to make it blend in. As we try to be as unobtrusive as possible and make things as normal and blend in as much as possible, so to reduce the possible issues. Right, no, it did not. Because typically what they're doing is, the reason they're doing that, in other words, my U-guard's under a wire. The reason they're doing that is because they're running a new wire. And then in other words, AT&T is putting up a new wire, and then they'll attach it with the guide wire attached to the side of the pole, and then they'll just take their cable wire and just stuff it in there and cut it down. But that's an advantage of U-guard. Maybe they'll cut it a few inches or something in order to put their thing in, put the wire in. But since U-guard is 2 inches wide, so therefore then, even though it's cut another 4 inches below, I put it, a centimeter or an inch below the cable wire. So now they cut it 4 inches below. Okay, no. So typically the poles aren't tilting that much that 4 inches will postle it. So therefore then the 4 inches, then it's still kosher. So to be fair, I have had cases. I had a case where they actually pulled off the U-guard and then put a new U-guard in the exact same spot, but going to a different wire and going to a different, higher up on the pole. But I was able to figure it out. Unfortunately, the checkers missed it, but I figured it out because the bolts were not to my Simmon. So if you follow my Simmon, then in other words, I preempted it. They didn't. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's zigzagging bolts, very easy. But on a typical pole, you don't need to worry about that. In other words, if the wire's on the front of the pole or the back of the pole, and you could see the whole lechi, you could see the whole lechi top to bottom and like that. And they won't, but it depends where you're looking from. And I'll talk about this more, but that there's definitely, I think everyone agrees there's chazaka and eruvin. It's just a question of how long the chazaka goes. So typically what I recommend to the different cities is that, you drive and check the eruv, but then someone has to walk the eruv every 3 months to make sure for something like what you're describing and like what I just described before, because you're right, something like that is difficult for driving someone to chop such a thing. So.
One of the problems that we have in that situation is that the utilities, they see like, we don't need this when they just take it all. Even though we have permission, we use the same pipe that they use for themselves and say, oh, it's empty.
You're a very zealous guy. Most people that I encounter, I rarely have lefties just pulled off. I find across the country, I find very rare that most of the utility company guys are very lazy, and if it's in their way, then they'll cut it or move it. But for the most part, they don't. If it's in their way or you cover the numbers or something like that. I know typically there's a Simmon, there's a reason why they're pulling it off. I know the guy has to go to. Right, maybe about a few inches, whatever it is. And there's a reason the guy's doing it. He's not doing it unless it's anti-Semitism. The guy's not doing it for fun. He's doing it because of a reason. He's not bored, right? So he's doing it for a reason. So you have to figure out what's the reason the guy's doing it. And then you can adjust your techniques.
All right, thank you. Any more questions? We have 4 builders here. So one is from California, so Los Angeles, which is dry and warm. We have Chicago here, which is snowy throughout the winter and very cold. And we have Lakewood, which is 4 seasons. And Baltimore, I guess, is also, which is 4 seasons. So the question is if there's any big differences that we find during building or maintaining an Eruv with where the seasons make a huge difference. Like I know by us in Lakewood, right when spring comes along, our biggest problem is the branches just growing into the string. So that's something that it's only that time of year that we have to really worry about it. I wonder if you have in LA, if you have that problem at all with the palm trees?
Yeah, palm trees, yeah, it is definitely more seasonal. Certain times of year we'll need it, but yeah, definitely palm trees will be a concern because also palm trees are the opposite of, not all other trees, but which is that as it grows, then it goes down, meaning other trees are growing upwards, the frond then goes down. So if it's above your line, it's bad because until it's high enough, because if it's going above your line, then it comes down on top of it. So yeah.
In Baltimore, we just changed very recently from using ground wire cover, which is like just a half a circle going up, and we used to put them in with U-nails, and I don't remember which is which, but it's interesting. But poles swell and contract, swell and contract, swell and contract, and when they do that, they push the nails out. And when we were finding that the lechis were sliding down after a few years, until we realized that that's what was happening, and the nails were being pushed out by the contraction and the swelling of the pole, and until we realized that, so then we came up with other rates. But now we're using conduit and screws, and that has not been a problem.
Okay, thank you very much. A round of applause for our panelists.